Holy. This is a tough one, man. This is a tough one. Yep. So that's what we're talking about today. You guys know I'm going to be doing the breakdown for you. Whoa. My notes on this episode span for 11 pages. 11 pages. And I promise they're all just highlight notes. And yes, I write in big font, so that might not actually be 11 pages worth of typing. So you're not going to be sitting here watching me talk about nothing. If you guys have not watched this series, I do recommend watching it. What's up, guys? It's good to see you. This is hard, man. This is a hard one to cover. I am in shock with the amount of information that I was given in this episode. The amount of things that I paralleled was crazy, man. Big dog. We'll catch you later if you can make it, man. We got another one tonight. We'll do our fun one tonight. But this is hard, man. I'm doing okay, Christy. I'm all right. I mean, I'm keeping it at bay, taking my medication, doing everything I need to do to be responsible. I haven't had any more strokes or TIAs or whatever they are, and I've been okay. So I'm really grateful, and I've been just grateful for every day. That's kind of what's been my feeling ever since. It's just like, man, when something like that happens, you're grateful for everything, and you're grateful and you're more present. So we are talking about The Devil in the Family. This is the Ruby Frankie documentary and the entire family and what they went through. And Shary and Chad, the oldest two of this family, are on the documentary giving their perspective. And then the husband and the father of the children named Kevin is also giving his perspective. And let me tell you something. It is crazy when I wrote down the things that I know about growing up in my family and the similarities. I mean, it's 11 pages. So I'm just going to get started. So you guys are here. It's good to see you guys. Let's get to it. So the episode starts out with there's a ton of backlash on the internet. So where we ended in episode 1 is they just found out, people, I guess, in general, they posted a video on 8 Passengers and said that Chad mentioned that he hadn't had a bed in months. 7 months. He'd been sleeping downstairs in a basement as a punishment for something that he did. This was also right when Jodie Hildenbrandt had walked into the Frankie life. So this gets so deep, man. The rabbit holes here are insane. So we end off with the internet is reacting because 8 Passengers was a big YouTube channel. I think they had 2 million subs, lots of views, and they were being consumed by a lot of people. And then all of a sudden, the world turned on them. So I think there was TikToks being made. There's tons and tons and tons of videos. We have so many things that we're going to talk about today. So just get ready, man. This is going to be crazy. So Ruby went and got a lawyer, and she was told by the lawyer to apologize because they were losing followers. This was his advice. He said, make an apology video. And Ruby said, over my dead body. She refused to make an apology video because she genuinely did not believe that what she did to any of them was wrong. So, Rebecca, you are going to be happy because I got a shelf that's going to go back here and it's coming. It's just going to take a while. It's got lights and everything. You're going to see all the stuff, man. I got a whole plan for the shelf. So it's going to look really good. All my stuff's to my side and you unfortunately can't see it. So so they had 2.5 million subscribers. That's a lot of people, man. A lot of people watching their videos. So she said to them, over my dead body, I'm not gonna apologize to the group. So in that time, they're losing subscribers, they're losing all that stuff, right? So technically, they said Ruby was canceled. There's a video of Ruby speaking, saying she's kind of vlogging, and she's like, at the center of who I am a child of God. Now, this is a very repeated thing. Obviously, like growing up in the LDS church, like I did, you say you're a child of God, you're a child of God. So she's trying to sit here and just be like, look, outside of all this, I know who I am. She's saying that Ruby is saying that her entire identity is that she's a child of God. So she goes to this place And Ruby became a religious teacher and went into spiritual work. So she makes this huge pivot on her channel. Her channel and all the things she starts doing become over. Whoa, you see that little jump down? It's a little harder than I thought it was going to be. Ruby starts to pivot her entire channel and becomes fixated on being a mom, being a child of God, being a good person, right? So this idea, what we've talked about, we're going to have to break this down. And when it comes to this religious idea, and this goes for all religious ideas, that if you do the right thing all the time, you're doing good. It's a performance and it's not realistic. And this is why the performative religious things are happening more often, is because you think that you have to do a certain thing and look a certain way. And it's kind of exactly what Jesus specifically talks about with Pharisees, is there's nothing you can do to perform. He knows your heart. He knows what's going on in here. So it doesn't really matter if you pay in tithing by making it rain. It doesn't matter if you're wearing the best clothes or this and that. It's not the point of God. The God's not coming to you for perfection. And this whole idea is perfection. This whole idea is you say your prayers, you do this thing, you do this thing. There's a difference between being disciplined and wanting to do that with your heart, and then doing it for outer acceptance, for people to believe that you are better than you are, that you're more religious than you are. Like, you can go to the temple a million times as an LDS person. You can go to church every Sunday. You can do all the volunteering. It's just outwardly. It's only if you're doing that stuff for the acknowledgement, it's the wrong thing. And so what I'm seeing is that that's happening in this family at this point. So she starts to pivot. And she goes back to, I'm a child of God, and this is her center. So now she needs to understand, and I'm looking at this from my psychology point for Ruby, is that now that she's not being seen as the perfect mother by the public, what is she craving now? She still needs validation from people. So now it's going to go into religion. Now religion gets super manipulated, and people use this whole idea to look like a good person. Religion can be used to make you look like a good person, and Ruby pivots hard into this. And so we're going to get deeper into the psychology of using religion to make you look better. But that's what I feel like this was, is that she needed to, like, when you start bringing God into it, it brings a sensitivity to people who are sensitive to God, to where it's like, okay, now this person's trying harder, or they're becoming different, or they're changing. And it almost takes the heat off of her. And that's exactly how I saw it. It's kind of like, and I'm just going to be straightforward with this. I remember when Kanye West went Christian and put out a Christian album, and I remember telling Kelsey, I'm like, something about this feels inauthentic. Something about what Kanye is doing doesn't feel like a heart change. This feels like Kanye knows the market and knows that the nation kind of claims to be Christian, or at least was at one point, and we were a Christian nation. And Kanye saw that freaking opportunity, and just when he was down in his billions, made music for people who were Christian, because this idea of Christianity is very widespread. Like, if you ask the majority of people across America what religion they are, a lot of people just say the word Christian. That's what the blanket statement is. So I really believe that there was something weird with that, because this goes back to this whole point of, like, she pulled out and kind of became this churchgoer, this good doer. Let's call it that. Let's call it a good doer. And that is a problem, because doing good for the wrong sake, I don't know how God balances that out. That's not for me to weigh, but it's definitely one of those things where you have to understand, we talk about the last days, people are deceived by certain things. So outwardly stuff is not what you're supposed to be looking for always. It's not an outwardly thing, right? It's not an outwardly, I'm better than you, this kind of thing, right? So then they pivot the channel, and Ruby changes it to reflect their religion. So now they're praying together. You need to understand, in the background, she's hanging out with Jodie, and she's getting deeper into it. Then the documentary goes on to say that Jodie was a businesswoman. And we talked about this last time before I got to this point, that she was a businesswoman who would specifically prey on the weak and hit on pain points. I wrote this down because there's a therapist in there who's speaking from the therapy side. And apparently he was part of her entire movement until he saw this stuff from the outside. So he's giving a perspective from someone who actually believed her at one point and changed his mind, and also a therapist. He said hit pain points. Now, we actually said this last time. We said that that was a problem, that she was specifically going after weaker people. You have to understand, the whole reason we talk about this is you have the Chad Daybells and you have the Jodie Hildenbrandts. These people are specifically targeting weaker minds, and they know when they have one. I promise you, they see it. Their talent is, this person is weak, and I know I can manipulate them. There's something there that they can see, because what they both did was created a platform. And we're going to get into the fact that when you look at Jodie to Chad and Lori to Ruby, it is unbelievable. Like, I'm telling you, I cannot believe what I have been hearing. I cannot believe it. They're the same fabric, the same material, cut from the same cloth. They were the people who put this stuff out there and bring people in. And when someone goes, I read your book, I watched your show, I did this, they bring you into the fold, and they know who they're going to surgically get because they'll give you more. It seems that Ruby and Lori were both eager for more, and they wanted someone even more dominant than them in certain ways to give them this identity of more for God. And we're going to get into that as well. That's a little bit later down. But she was a businesswoman who specifically preyed on weak people. She knew how to make money off of people's pain. That was a very specific point that I wrote. This is another big thing we just touched on. Jodie was very anti-man. So Jodie had a let's empower women, but she also was very anti-man. Now, the point being, she's helping couples. If you are a hater and a sexist in any way, shape, or form, and you're giving couples therapy, you probably shouldn't. If you have a bias towards either sex, why would you be helping couples? And again, that's another big point, is she's helping couples, she's helping these people, but she obviously has her biases, and that's what makes it so hard to listen to her talk, even because you can hear it. You don't even need them to say it to you. You can hear it. So yeah, you can tell when she's talking, she's against men, and you can feel it. And the way she talks about the spiritual life and how men are only lustful, and men are this, and men are this, and men are that, and they're bringing us down, and this and that. Look, I think you can't do it, because it goes both ways. If a man's saying the same thing and blatant statement, all these women, and putting everyone in one category in any way, you're automatically wrong. You're wrong. There's no category or subcategory. And this goes into everything, right? It goes into race. It goes into everything. You don't throw people in one single lane and say, this is what this is. But you can tell she obviously was very against men. And this is another thing that I'll talk about. There's a lot of men whose entire goal is to please their wife. And I have to hit on this. This is a problem. The thing is, you should not be bending backwards to let your wife be happy when it's your job to lead your wife and love your wife. And you should be helping and guiding and being there with step by step. You guys are partners. It's side by side, shoulder to shoulder. And sometimes you take the lead and you're the lead man. But I hate the fact that it's always about pushing the man behind, or pushing the woman in front, or pushing the woman behind and pushing the man in front. What the hell? It's this. I don't understand where we lost that. Yes, men lead, but women also have their part, and it doesn't make the man better, and it doesn't make the woman better. It's just pissing me off that this is like the stigma of life, that we're having these problems with these people. It's like, if men put women down, that's wrong. But if women put men down, it's also wrong. Stop subjecting each other to one another. That's a problem that's happening in the world. This isn't just the Jodie, this group stuff, right? We should be empowering each other. And when it comes to marriage, you are one. Why do you think that Jesus says that? Why do you think it's called becoming one? Right? It's one. So if you don't like your right side, what are you going to do? Right? You don't like this side of yourself. Come on. You're going to be a split house. And we'll get into that too. That's a whole nother thing. Okay. Another thing that she did is she tore couples apart. So Jodie's whole thing is she would get people who are vulnerable. And this hits my heart really hard because this is happening. And I have a whole story that goes into this that happened, and I haven't talked to you guys about this yet, but it's nothing close to as serious, has nothing to do with Lori and Chad, has nothing to do with Jodie and them, but being spiritually manipulated, I've had an experience with where you're really vulnerable and you believe that someone has your best interest and they're telling you they have their best interest. And that's a whole story for another time, but this hits my heart and this is why we're talking about this. This happens more often than you think. People who are hungry for all the things in life, which is to heal, to get better. They want to feel loved. They want to be seen. And there's people who know that that's a market. And instead of coming in and saying, I'm going to help you, the market is, let's go get those people and specifically get in their heads because they're going to listen to what you say. So you say all the right things. They start doing one-on-ones with Jodie, and now they're getting divorced. Now they're splitting up. So anytime a spiritual person comes in and immediately splits a couple out, what's going on there? That's a problem that we're having, though. This is a commonality in life. There's people who are running businesses off of being life coach, business, all this bull crap that people label themselves. And I'm sorry, it's just bull crap. You're allowed to share your life experience, but let's not act like you're a licensed something that you're not, or all those things. I really do not agree with that. And I'll tell you this, you guys know I am not a licensed therapist, psychiatrist. This is my opinion and life lessons. This is all I'm sharing. It's to see if you guys get something from it, but in no way, shape, or form am I a therapist or am I supposed to be giving advice to you. I just tell you what has worked for me personally. That is the whole point. Okay. What might work for me might not work for you. So let's just put it out there like that. Okay. But she would come in. They weaponize the word. What a cult leader of a cult I got. Yes, exactly. The cult. And that's a perfect word. We haven't said the word yet, but it comes up in this documentary. And I thought that was interesting because this word is becoming more common in these spiritual groups, these small groups, these branches. You got to be really, really careful because people will get in people's heads and tickle your ears and say stuff that makes you feel good. Not everything's a feeling. We'll talk about that another time. Okay. This is another one that was really interesting. Jodie was exploiting Mormon anxiety. Okay. So the Mormon anxiety is this, and this is what we've talked about. And I'm just going to say it because I grew up in it and I need it to be a point. I have discussed it with other LDS people, and this is just something we have to talk about. There is Mormon culture and Mormon things that happen where there's an idea that you have to be perfect. This perfection is not existent. If you do not stop pretending, this happens obviously outside of the Mormon church. Perfectionism is a disease. It's not real. And you will never be perfect. And if you're striving for perfection, I genuinely believe you will always be dissatisfied. And I have to say it because God doesn't expect you to be perfect. There is nothing we can do as human beings that will ever be perfect enough for God. Our righteousness is dirty rags to God. And at first, when I heard that, I said, okay, well, then what's the point? What's the point of even trying? If it's just, if I am my best self, and I go get the neighbors' newspapers and I'm doing everything, that's not the point though. That's works. That's outer, right? He's talking about you can't be perfect. And there's a culture in the LDS church that provides this idea of perfection, which is get the good job, you perfect marriage, perfect kids, perfect everything. Who's perfect? Raise your hand if you are. Now put it down because you're lying. Because you're not. And I love you, but you're not. And we need to stop fighting for perfection. Frick that. Stop trying to change everything about you to be perfect, right? And that goes into a deeper discussion about culture. But it's happening too often. People want to be perfect, and it's working hard and trying to be better is different than perfection. If I thought I was trying to be perfect on something, I would fail every day. And how discouraged would I be every day if I thought I could be perfect at something? That's the point. You don't need, and that's another word we'll use, normal. There's no such thing as normal. No one here is just, we use the word normal, but no one here is just fits into one box. And that's a whole nother discussion. But Let's stop this perfectionism. And the culture of perfectionism is literally hurting spiritually because you think that you have to be perfect for God when you don't. You think that you got to show up after you've done all of this work to get to God. And you have to do all this pre-cleansing and all this pre-work and all this cool stuff just to get back to God. That is a gap that is being taught. It's a lie. Why would Jesus die for you if you thought, oh, well, you need to go do a bunch of work, and then when I died for you, that will count for you? This is happening in culture and religion, and it's sickening. It's not what God ever made. He wouldn't have done this. Okay. Now, the Mormon anxiety comes from that perfection, being looking certain way, having the best families, having the best everything. It's bull. I almost said it. It's BS, and it pisses me the F off. Stop pretending you're not perfect in your perfect little lawn and your perfect little house. Congratulations. That's about all you get. Congratulations. Your house looks great. Your yard looks great. Your yard looks great. Your house looks great. You did it. You worked hard. Be happy that you worked hard. But let's not pretend that it's perfect. You don't have to look perfect and be hurting on the inside. That's a stupid. And then I wrote down be pure and perfect. So that's a whole nother topic, but being pure and perfect in this context was that they needed to present perfection online. That's the whole point. Jodie started to make a church within the church. This is where I wanted to hit hard. The church within the church is the now new thing. These small groups, these book writers, these authors, these people who are drawing you to their specific brand are bringing people in and then becoming the leaders of it. So the more you look into this, the more you'll see that there is a cult bringing from, let's grab a bunch of people who are this religion and bring them into my smaller group where we can discuss our religion that we really are passionate about. And then that person who leads it usually starts to indoctrinate, an indoctrination of their specific things, an indoctrination of their thoughts and all of this stuff. It continues on and on. It's a loop. And this is how you create a cult. And I did not know. So when my family was going through this and people were saying, your mom was in a cult and this whole group is a cult, and I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how it worked. I didn't understand it. I kept saying, no, she's not in a cult. Because in my mind, a cult was very specific. Like, the cults. I'm not going to say them because they're going to get mad at me on YouTube. But I had very specific thoughts of what a cult was and what they did. And so I didn't ever label her in a cult at first because I didn't understand what she was doing. This was an actual cult. And anytime someone pulls you into a group and indoctrinates you and tells you what you need to believe and think, and then leads you down paths and you start doing them and you start worshiping them, cult. Anytime they raise themselves above, especially when it comes to God. So she became, and this was said by the group, by the way, they said she became like God or the prophet. They wanted to please Jodie. The group wanted Jodie's approval. They wanted Jodie to give him a hug and a stamp. They weren't going for God's approval. It was now, let's make Jodie happy. Tell me that's not a cult, because now Jodie has the voice of God. Blasphemy, but it is. She starts having the voice over people's minds. And anytime you use a human being to give you the voice, it doesn't matter if it's your pastor, your dad, your wife, your husband, you need to understand people are used as instruments of God, but they do not replace God. So do not think that you need to go to a human being and hear everything and walk away without talking to God too. You got to understand this is how this is happening so often. Lori thought Chad was the voice of God. Why? She went to him. Hey, is this person dark? Hey, what's going on here? He made calls, spiritual calls, because he was able to give her God's voice. She didn't go check with God. She wasn't praying. She wanted to be able to call a person and answer. I'm sure a lot of people wish they could just call God and he'd pick up the phone and be like, hey, what I need to do? And God goes, hey, you need to go downstairs and do this, this, and this. And then you go do it. That's what a lot of people want, maybe even subconsciously. But a human being, it doesn't matter who it is, please hear me on this. Stop letting human beings be the voice of God to you, no matter how influential, or even if Moses speaks on behalf of God, not for God, I'm sorry, on behalf of God. Take any person from the Bible. They are not speaking in place of God. They are delivering the message, and then you should still feel and go and believe and have God there, right? We don't just take human beings' words in replacement of God. That's the point. Okay. Had to get on that one. Jodie made you feel special. That is a big deal. She made people feel special. She made people feel belonging. She brought you in. This is what people, I always am trying to explain to you. It's the aroma, the pie, the one that picks you up through the nose and brings you closer to the pie and then traps you. People don't just walk into traps. I mean, it's a rarity that somebody would just be like, oh yeah, I see that this is a trap and I'm going to go into it. No, the whole point is you're lured. You're brought in slowly. A fish sees some food on a hook. Do you think it knows it's going to get hooked and reeled? No. And so that is what's happening here, is that people think that it's just so blatant that people are bad. And a lot of times when we hear about these cases and we hear about these people who are doing this, we see the end product. So we have a puzzle that's already made for us in front of us. It's laid out. Somebody put the pieces together. So now it's like, how did you not know this? And how could you have missed? When you listen to Chad, I feel for Shary and Chad with all of my heart, because the questions from the outer lens would be, how would you not notice or think that that's weird? And sometimes the director specifically asks one of them, what did you think about that? And they're like, well, at the time, I didn't think anything of it. And it's like, yeah, because you're in it. You're a child. You're growing up. You don't think that way. Your brain isn't thinking, oh yeah, this is going this way. But we have a tendency to do that as a culture, is come in at the end of the story and go backwards and be like, oh, well, how'd you miss this? And it's like, come on, bro. They were living it in the time. They didn't know anything different. They had nothing to compare it to. They didn't have the puzzle pieces yet. They were in the moment and they justified it like any human being would, especially as a child. You don't know better. You don't know different. Ugh, I just go off on this stuff. Can't remember if it was mentioned in the doc or not, but when Shary made her own YouTube channel, Ruby charged her a 10% manager fee and a 10% like tithing. She really saw herself as a god to her kids. There you go. I did not know that, by the way. So Shary made a YouTube and then Ruby took 10% of that earnings. My goodness gracious. Very specific. Exactly. It's deceptive. Remember, this is all about deception. Okay. I'm going to keep going. We got a lot of pages to go down. It started happening in October 2019, these meetings, the indoctrination. So Ruby brings her husband, Kevin, to a love versus lust workshop. My goodness. And basically tries to get him into it. Now, Kevin is saying two things I thought were really interesting. He said, this is a man-hating club and this is a cult. So Kevin immediately, and by the way, if you do not know who Kevin is the husband to Ruby. Okay, the children's father and Ruby's husband. He is a big subject in this documentary. He is the one talking a lot of the time and giving you the insights and things that were said between Ruby and him. And he's in it and he goes, this is a cult. This is a man-hating club. There's only women in here. And Jodie's up there. Your husband's a lustful this and blah, blah. And we're just ripping it all. And so these women, obviously, like the thing that's so sad is that people who get pulled into these things a lot of times are earnest. A lot of times the people who get lured in are people who genuinely do want a better, let's say that Ruby, or they saw Jodie and wanted a better marriage. There's nothing wrong with wanting a better marriage. There's nothing wrong with any of that. It was just like they were just being pulled in for this one reason, and Jodie knew how to lure them further. So, but yeah, exactly. And it's different because he's saying a lot of regrets now, but you also have to give some understanding that in the time you don't see it the same, but that's a whole nother discussion on where he sits, because I haven't researched him enough. Okay. I just haven't. They were pressuring Kevin though to continue. They were pressuring him in. So he was on the outside, and this wasn't just Ruby. This was also Ruby's friend pushing him into this group to be a part of this. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. And I think this is where we need to start seeing parallels. I wrote, Ruby was loving it, Jodie's teachings, because it validated the things that bug her for a long time. So like, again, Jodie was just tickling Ruby's ears, telling her everything that she already had possibly felt in the past, maybe not having a certain type of husband that or his or her husband doesn't do certain things or isn't this or isn't that. So all those gripes that she had were being validated. Someone was saying them out loud. And so it got Ruby's attention. And then Kevin and Ruby have a sit down because Jodie basically had the roadmap back to happiness, right? So now they're having a struggle in their marriage. Here comes Jodie. Oh, here she is. She's Dora. She's got the map. Dora's going to give you the map and you're going to be able to follow it back to a happy marriage. That is absolutely crazy because we all know, everybody who's married in here knows marriage is work. It's just work. And it doesn't mean that you can't fix it or whatever the case is, right? You can or can't. The truth is both parties have to be willing to do that and work on it. That's as simple as it gets. And once you start working on it, you don't know where it's going to go. But believing that everything is perfect because here's this lady with this idea, it could be a deceptive idea because you want something to work. And it just bugs me because now you're getting this is where we need to start looking at infiltration from Jodie to the group. This is where the infiltration's coming. We have to see why I'm hitting these topics is it's the Chads and the Jodies that infiltrate slow and they start getting into the sensitive parts of you. So now she's in their marriage. Now she's working in here. Now she's working on the most intimate thing you can have between two people. She's in there and she's like, now she's helpful. She's so good. She's so good. All she does is good. That's the deception. You have to see it for what they're looking at least from their perspective. So this one got me. I literally wrote this. Jodie ran small groups and would talk to addicts. They would open up to her and tell her that they relapsed. She would shame them and then compare the men to Kevin. And it made Kevin feel special. So these men, she ran a men's group. The man-hating woman ran a men's group. I don't know. I don't know what to say about that. It's sad because these men could have been there for getting better. There could be genuine desire to be better for your wife, for your family, whatever the case is, whatever the reason that you're in this group for. She ran a men's group and would specifically talk to men and they would open up to her and tell them, hey, I'm struggling with this. I'm struggling with this. And she'd flip it on them, make them feel smaller, even though they just opened up to you. And then say, look at Kevin. Kevin's a righteous man. Kevin's in here. He's doing his work. You got to be more like Kevin. You got to be like this. So now these men are comparing themselves to her star man, her favorite guy right now. And now these guys aren't getting any help. And who knows what they were told. I have no idea what these men were told, but it is an indoctrination because the wives and them were probably having these issues. So the wives are going to groups with Jodie and now the men are going to the group with Jodie. So it's this big encompassing business for her. She gets to manipulate everybody and she's got both ears. So now she's separately telling him how to be, and it all sounds good. I'm sure there's a lot of ear tickling though too that made them think I'm bad. I'm this, I'm that. That's exactly how those groups must have gone. I don't know for a fact, but I'm already calling it from just watching it from the outside. This is the thing I wrote down for Kevin. I said, Kevin had an honest desire to have his wife love him, but she started looking at him different in a good way. The desire is a good desire, but it was corrupted by Jodie. So what happened was once Kevin was doing what Ruby wanted, once Kevin jumped in line, and by the way, Kevin, regardless of anything, dude got freaking big. Like he started getting muscular. And so I don't know what his whole thing changed. It looked like he started working out, doing his thing. So he was like probably getting into the place where he thought he was in the best place of his life, at least from my perspective, because it looked like he was starting to, do things he thought he would right for his marriage. His marriage was going good. He's getting in good shape. Those things can be trying to validate better, I guess, trying to make you feel better, I guess. I don't know how else to explain that. It's just an outerly thing, right? Working on your self idea. But she started to, once Kevin fell in line, once Kevin did what she wanted, now she's googly eyed over him. When he walks in the room, she's looking at him the way he always wanted. And then the problem is that's a natural desire to want to be loved and desired by your wife and have your wife admire you as a man for working hard, working and being something and just being loved. You just want to be loved. And so when your wife looks at you with admiration, you feel proud. You would feel proud, and any man would feel proud that his wife is happy and feels like that's my man kind of thing. I think that's the problem. It's a natural desire to have that. It could be corrupted in the way of wanting to be looked at, whatever way, but at the core of it, it's not a bad desire. It's being corrupted though by Jodie because now it's all about I might want to be looked at this way. And he's only being looked at that way because he fell in line with what they wanted, right? Exactly. So it's not like he was really making those decisions for himself. Exactly. Oh no, she really enjoyed it. We're getting there. We're really getting there. They fixed their passion. Now, this isn't a wrong thing, but the passion that Ruby and Kevin had lost, they fixed. So now, this is what's crazy. Jodie comes in, Ruby changes, Kevin changes, and now the family changes. So now everything is happy. The kids are happy. There's no more snapping. There's no more this. Now the mom and the dad are closer than ever. You have to see that things looked good. Jodie looked like she brought goodness. This is the deception. This is where it all brings all this stuff in. We're not looking behind the curtain more. And she looks like she's changing his life and changing Ruby's life. And now Ruby's nice and Ruby's a sweet mom and this and that. And I'm sure there was real parts of them that are human that wanted possibly to be nicer or something of that nature to their kids. I don't know. I'm not going to speak for them, but this is where it all started to happen. So now Jodie looks like she's bringing true change to this family. She's bringing it and changing everything. And now the kids are happy because their parents are happy. The parents are happy. They're passionate. But I just wrote feelings are dangerous. Feelings are dangerous. Feelings and spiritual stuff are not always coincided. Okay. Feelings are feelings. Spiritual, deep things are a little separate than just a warm feeling, this feeling. There's a lot of confirmation and a lot of things that God does to bring peace. And then there's feeling good, right? Going to church and feeling good versus feeling transformed, not the same. You don't get transformed every Sunday, but I'm saying all these factors are a part of this, and feeling can be preyed on easily. Feelings can be changed. You can be manipulated by your feelings. You just have to be careful that that's exactly what these people, Chad, Jodie's, are doing. They are preying on feelings, not spiritual things, because they know they really can't operate into that level. They can't operate spiritually, so they have to play on your feelings. I wrote, Ruby stopped being mean when Jodie came in. It looked good from the outside, and the couple and family were different, but better. Then I wrote, Jodie made Ruby and Kevin into the leaders of connections. I said they're famous, so obviously people know them. Jodie used Ruby's influence, so Ruby was still manipulated. Now you need to see this, okay? Maybe Ruby might not have really known the true manipulation that was happening on Jodie's part, because it's exactly what happened with Chad and Lori. There was manipulated on both sides. They both manipulated. So they're both bad, but there's still an opportunity for somebody to be manipulated. I do think in the very beginning that Jodie was way more manipulative to Ruby and got into Ruby's head way more. And this is my perspective. I haven't watched the last episode, so I don't have all the information, but from what I've gathered, it looks like in the beginning when she said, you guys need to be the leaders. She knew they had a following. She wants a business. She wants a bigger business. So now she's got Kevin and Ruby up there speaking on behalf of her company, being the faces that are already have a YouTube following. They know people know them. They know that they're known in the communities. She puts a face to it. And now Ruby and them are basically serving them, right? They're serving them. That Ruby and Kevin are now serving the needs of Jodie's business. It was said in the documentary by someone that Jodie wanted money and power. This was their biggest point, is that she wanted this. So everything she did was about those two things. How similar does that sound? What are you willing to do for money? And what are you willing to do for some power? And we've seen it. And this is happening. This is a life problem, right? This happens everywhere. People want money and power. They're not happy where they are. And I guess they're willing to do anything they can to have money and power. I don't understand. It's a piece of paper. Yes, it can change your life for better. It can do things. I understand that, but it will never bring you happiness. I don't care how big your house is. I don't care how big I don't care how much money's in your bank account. All of that's gone at some point. All of it. It means nothing. All you can do is possibly leave it for your family. But you as a person are not valuable, more valuable by money. I never understood it. I never understood. Like, do you not strip yourself back and realize that your clothes, your stuff doesn't actually mean value? It has value. We've assigned value to it, but you, the person with the skin, are the one that has the value, and it's about who you are and what you are and what you're becoming. It has nothing to do with the value assigned of money. And it blows my mind that we're willing to take lives, okay? And I mean, as a human race, take life for money. We're willing to abuse people for money. We're willing to lie and manipulate. I mean, come on, bro. She was really deep into getting people into her group, into her cult, and pulling them in as deep as she possibly could. And that's exactly what happened, man. What are you willing to do for money and power? And the power is domination. The power is leadership over people to literally manipulate their marriages, manipulate their lives, make them do things that they would never do. So I just had to hit on that. Next thing you know, 8 passengers got changed into the Moms of Truth and was a part of Jodie's business. So I said, made it into Jodie's business. So now their channel, they say, let's rebrand this. And now it's Moms of Truth. And they get all the community in on it. And they start this Moms of Truth. I wrote Jodie and Ruby started working together. And Ruby even called herself in the video a sidekick. Now, you need to understand. I think, from a psychology perspective of an alpha and an omega, I guess, or alpha dominating someone. When you literally tell people that you are the sidekick, you are literally submitting to someone who's a dominant person. So if Jodie is an already dominant and she's literally being told, well, I'm just your sidekick. I'm just here as your helper. She's literally handing her submissiveness in a way. And I think that is something so crazy. I really, really think that this is way more common than we probably think, but this is a dynamic between two people. And obviously at this point, Jodie is a alpha and she's literally able to get people to submit to her in some way, shape, or form. Okay, so now I wrote, I think that Ruby was actually genuine for once during some of the connection stuff. And I will tell you why. I think a part of her really genuinely at some point wanted to actually be a quote unquote good person. I think she actually had a desire and knew and wanted to change for just a brief time. And I think this is human nature. I think there's some people who are absolutely evil and will always be evil, and in no way, shape, or form am I advocating or saying that Ruby is not. Okay. I am telling you, though, that there's people who sometimes will have this break. I mean, you can watch TV shows, you can look it up. There's times where people break for a second and they want to do the right thing. And this is just psychology of human beings. I think Ruby at one point might have been genuine for once. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not trying to say she did anything right. Okay. I'm being very clear. At one point, I genuinely believe that she wanted to be a better person. And I think Kevin as well wanted to be a better person. And I think that they wanted that because that was actually in there. And there was a lot more deception. The more they opened up thinking they were doing the right thing, the more that Jodie could slide in. So we just need to bring that up. I really do think that. This is what they all thought. And this is what got Kevin and Ruby to really buy in, is that they thought that God's work was being done and that they were bigger than themselves. And this leads into the next part. This is crazy to me. I mean, this is exactly where the two freaking worlds collide here. The two worlds collide right here because in 2020 made them think that the end of the world was coming. This changes everything and gives you exact context. Exact context. Now, I grew up as a son of a prepper, of a woman who prepped for the end of the world and talked about it on a consistent basis. What this does to children is freaking makes them think that there's nothing else but the end of the world. Just basically wait for the apocalypse. This is absolutely wrong. This brought so much fear into my life. This brought so much pain into my life. And this made me think there was no freaking point of anything. And yeah, I might have had it different, but there's a lot of people who are so heavy on the end of the freaking world. And we got to talk about it, man. This is a problem. You're a real problem. And I'll tell you why. Jesus said, I don't know when I'm coming back. People will be given in marriage. There's all kinds of stuff that we could reference. But what Jesus is saying, even if you want to talk debate, rapture, whatever the case is, very clearly in the end of times, people are still going to be living life when Jesus comes back. Okay. So the end of the world and this idea that prepping for the end of the world and being so ready and on edge for the end of the world is a problem. And I'll tell you why. There's nothing wrong with food storage, and there's nothing wrong with being prepared as a family. I am someone who has things in our cars like first aid kits, all kinds of things that I buy in case the kids get a cut, in case this. I don't think there's anything wrong. This is the problem. You take an innocent, real thing that should be okay, and you take it to level 100. There's nothing wrong with having food storage. That's just good sense. It's the obsession. It's the end of the world. Why are you deeming it the end of the world? Why are you the one that's saying this is it? The movement's happening and we're happening. It's going. And you spend the whole time of your life worrying and thinking about the end of the world and preparing for something. And it keeps not happening because you don't know when it's going to happen. So I have a really weird relationship with this because preparation is smart. Obsession is just not. Having things that you need in case of an emergency situation, if your state shut down for a while, if something did happen and you had what you needed, great, amazing. You did something and you had it. It's what comes with the whole ideal apocalyptic part of the end of the world now becomes about worrying that you are going to have to prepare for being here or not, or that the world's going to blow up or zombies or whatever you think it is. Sorry, I get a little angry about this one. People get so obsessed with this idea that it takes the peace of today. You don't even, why, God says, don't even worry about tomorrow. Why are you even thinking about tomorrow? Why are you troubled with the end of the world? Yeah, you can't do a thing about it. Nothing. So your obsession with it is a problem. And the obsession that's happening in the culture is constantly thinking about it and talking about it isn't healthy. I'm sorry, it's not healthy. If it happens, it happens. And if you have preparations, great. I think it's smart to be prepped for other things, especially if you live in certain states. You'd be prepped for certain things, but you are not present if you're thinking about it. And it causes chaos in the soul. It causes peace to be stripped, and it causes people to do a lot of really bad things. Because if you really brought out the end of the world, a lot of times we immediately go to lawlessness. If you watch any movie, there's no rules anymore. It just break the functionality and peace and everything that lives now is gone, and it's just chaos. Some people would thrive in that chaos. Some people would love to be in that chaos, and they might want that and desire chaos. Okay, but it's not a movie. Now, I wrote that down because the parallels of the end of the world starts and sparks something in Ruby, Lori, Chad, and Jodie. As a group, they believed without a doubt that they were on the right side. Yes, they did. Trust me, I had to move that damn food. When we lived, this was before Lori ever met Chad. I was moving the food storage because they moved the houses, especially in Hawaii. They moved house to house to house, and I was carrying the food storage. The amount of water and food that we had was all in preparation for that time, even though we lived on an island. If you lived in Kauai on the end of the world, you have a pretty good chance of being fine. You're pretty good. You're pretty safe. If there's an apocalypse, that's where you might want to go, because it's a freaking lush island full of everything, and you could fish and do everything you needed, and you really don't have to trip on anything. It's not a problem. Okay. She started to be, so she had said the word, she changed her language. She was making a video, Ruby was, and she said, she started saying something else, and then she's changed to, she started being an emergency prepper. And emergency prepper is a big deal because emergency is now emergency for my family. Now I need a whole entire huge thing of food. I need all of this stuff. Emergency is going out of your way to get more and more and more and more, right? So now emergency prepper. And it's really interesting that she changed her language to the word emergency. Okay. Then they started to actually talk and be in the mindset of we are preparing. This is it. This is the end. Now you understand, put yourself in that mindset and what that does to people. The end of the world. There will no longer be a normal life. It will now be the end. This changes people. This changes the way that they think. And this changes the way that they function and think about life, because now things change drastically. This is pure survival at this point. Pure survival. Okay? This is going to change your entire brain if you thought that this was genuinely the end. Okay? So they start doing that and they're preparing. They thought 2020 was the end. Then it skipped over and it said, and one thing that was interesting is it's interesting to hear the person themselves speak. So Jodie starts saying, she said, Jodie called God the energy that she knows. And I wrote same old song because it's the same words, the energy, the idea. It's your own version of God. And this is also another big problem we could tackle at another time. You can't just make it up. It's not just this. It's like that's the problem, is that there's a lot of people who just make up their version of it. And unfortunately, that just doesn't work out. It allows you to do whatever because you have your own version. You're not reading your Bible and studying the version, which is the reality, right? Okay. Ruby and Jodie were called by God, and God told Ruby to build her channel. Well, not told her. I'm sorry. Let me fix that. Ruby. Okay, there it is. So God built Ruby up and her channel, and they were meant to be together. Imagine that. Imagine that. So they both believe that they were both being led separately down different paths. Jodie was being led down this path. Ruby was being led down this path by God until they intertwined, until they met at the peak. Because Ruby was supposed to do it. God told her to make that channel, and Jodie was supposed to be this person. And at some point, God knew their paths would meet. How incredibly similar is this? I mean, it just blows my mind. It's like you couldn't write two stories this similar. This is exactly the same exact type of beliefs. This is leading to the same place too. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. The more I listened and wrote, the more I couldn't believe what I'm listening to. How does this happen twice? How does this happen twice? Appreciate you, Aaron. The book of Revelation has one story with the 144,000. JWs have another story of 104,000. Mormons have another story of 104. They can't be all right. I'm going to yeah. It's just crazy, man. The more I wrote, the more I was blown away that this is almost to the T. What they're both exactly the same. It just doesn't make sense. How? Then Jodie called Ruby at her house. This is where it gets really, really. This is where the beginning of this is the beginning of the end of it all. Jodie calls Ruby and says she's being haunted by shadowed figures in her room, in her bedroom. So Jodie is terrified. And we're talking about, she calls Ruby bawling and says, I'm being haunted by demons. Satan's after me. This enforces this idea that Satan is specifically going after Jodie because Jodie is called by God. So of course, the more you're called by God, the more opposition you get. And so therefore she's selling Ruby and Kevin on this idea that Satan is coming after her. Okay. It gets fucking weird right now. It's about to take a big turn that I did not know anything about this, okay, until this documentary. So Jodie said Satan had it out for her. Sound familiar? Does that not sound familiar? Now Satan is specifically attacking the good ones. It's getting really, really eerily right there. Same lane, same smell. It's the same thing. It's just getting closer and closer. Okay. So they go to her house. They take everybody out to her house. Her house is a freaking mansion, compound. Chad said her house was amazing. It was a beautiful mansion and it had 4 levels of this house. You need to understand this house is ginormous. Now, Kevin goes in and now he's being sold on this. He's being sold on this. And I'm going to read this real quick because you just said, this is how I felt watching your Netflix doc. Unfortunately, one of my siblings couldn't even finish the first episode. Yeah. We've talked about that. And we're going to do a comparison of the two at the end because I haven't seen it in a while. I don't know if I'll watch it, but I remembered a lot of it. So we'll talk about that and how the storytelling is very important to make sure you guys have the context here and how this actually could help someone else rather than just being there for the sake of a story, because that's not why we're here. We're not here to sensationalize this. We're talking about this because this could help other people, man. This could save other people. You never know. But we're always about bringing the healing at the end of this. Okay. So Kevin said things start happening that he can't explain, like spiritual stuff. So he gave 2 examples. There was a big boom in the house when they were there, and nobody was downstairs, and there was nothing downstairs. There was no shot that it happened. So it scared them. They heard this horrible noise, and there was no explanation. So now they're like, oh my gosh, paranormal activity, we're right now. Then they see this huge hand. Now, this picture that I saw of the hand really did not look like a hand to me. I guess Kevin took a picture of the hand. He said it was a hand like this and that the fingers were like this much bigger, like a monstrous hand, like Goliath is up there touching the top, right? And I don't know, man. That one was weird. That picture did not look like a hand. It looked like a smudge, maybe a bird. But again, they're being sold in certain ways by unexplainable things that there's no way Jodie could have created the situation. Okay. Yeah, it's not. I mean, if you saw the documentary, it doesn't even look like a handprint. It looks like a smudge. And I'm just being, if it was a clear as day handprint and the fingers were like, the longest, biggest hand ever, I'd be like, dang, that's freaking scary. It didn't even look like a hand. I'm sorry. Just the honest to God truth, did not look like a hand. But they were being, exactly. They needed to believe that there was things there. They needed to believe that this was real. And come on, it just wasn't. It wasn't happening that way. So that sells them enough. He thought that Satan or supernatural things were happening at Jodie's house. So I guess Jodie's bishop's coming over. He's blessing her. He's going around blessing the house. And dude even says, I can't keep doing this. It's not working. So obviously we need to figure something else out, which I think is crazy because obviously a lot of people in the LDS church turn to their bishops who are supposed to be the authority person in that position. And he even is like, I can't do anything about this. And that's a whole nother discussion for another time. But like this whole thing idea is that they're bringing a lot of people and this must sell a lot of this. Like even think about it from a perspective. If you go, oh, well, that the spiritual person that I called can't even get rid of this. This is a problem. So now they're even more scared. So Ruby suggests that Jodie comes and lives at their house. And I wrote, so they took Jodie into their home with exclamation points and question marks. Okay. She comes and lives with them. This is deep, man. This is seriously deeper than I ever could have imagined. This is deep stuff. Jodie now leaves her compound of a house to come live in the Frankie home. Okay. In the home for an undisclosed amount of time. There's not going there. They weren't like, come stay with us for a week while we purify the house. Like she just comes and lives with them. Okay. Shary got moved out of her room for Jodie. So Shary is about to leave for college and she actually gets kicked out of her room 2 weeks early and Jodie moves into it. Now that would just be hard because You only have 2 weeks left with your family. You're about to leave anyway. And here comes someone else who comes and gets us come and live in your room. I feel like that would be hard alone on me. Chad didn't even think it was weird though that Jodie was living there. And I bring that up because this is an important thing. You need to understand from his perspective, this is a woman that's done nothing but help him, his family, his mom, his dad. He has all this evidence at 16, 17 years old to believe that Jodie's a good person. So there's a lot of manipulation there on a young man who doesn't have that experience or never been manipulated. You don't, when you're not manipulative, you don't think that people are manipulative. You don't look at people and say, oh, well, that person's manipulative. That person's trying to get me. You don't think that way because you're not that type. You wouldn't do that to someone else, and you've never been manipulated in this manner. So how would he even know anything different? I think it was really big of his honesty there for us to understand contextually that a lot of reasons why people don't see red flags. And I think it's interesting because the director's asking questions on camera, which I personally love in documentaries. So you know that there's a conversation being had and their questions are honest and raw. And he goes, no, why would that be weird to me? At that time, she was my therapist. She helped me. She got me through so much. So Chad doesn't think it's weird. No one's really raising their eyebrows at this. This isn't something that's like a red flag at this point because she's a friend. She's a mentor. She's helped everybody in that house. She's family at this point. She's damn near family. Okay. Here's what happens right after she moves in though. Now the little siblings are problems. This is where it all turns. So now Chad's a good kid. Shary's leaving. And Chad is been doing great. So there's nobody to blame right now. And now the little kids, the two younger siblings are the ones. And they specifically start becoming a problem for Ruby. And you see it in the videos. There's lots of unedited footage of her on camera talking. And then all of a sudden a kid comes in and she's screaming and all this stuff. The anger all shifted over to them. And remember, there was a peace period, right? So I took this into context. There was a peace period in the Frankie family. It sounded like where the parents were doing better. Their marriage was better. They loved each other. The family was doing better. There wasn't really that snapping and all that, the performance stuff, because now Ruby and Jodie are doing it. So now the kids aren't on camera. Now the kids aren't being forced to. So there was a normal period. So it's an up and down life for them. So they're going through a roller coaster and they had a down and then all of a sudden, they're in a normal place and then all of a sudden it goes back down. So somebody's got to be blamed, right? Somebody's got to be the problem. And they decided that it's the younger siblings. Ruby thought that those kids were evil because their behavior changed. They started to be kids. They started not listening all the time. They started having a harder time. And she immediately deemed them evil. And I'm using the word evil because that's what it said, evil. Another weird thing is that the family wasn't supposed to tell anyone that Jodie was living with them. So there was like a don't tell anybody that Jodie's here, which is automatically puts exactly, Kelsey. Automatically puts a weird feeling immediately on the family. Like, why is it a secret? Why is it a big deal that Jodie's here? What would that matter? I mean, why? Because, Jodie, again, she's got an online business she's got to get to. She's got to go manipulate. She's got to get people to pay her to F them up. So she has to continue facading, and she is living in the thing. This is where this gets out of hand. This is weird. All right, let's get to it. So Shary gets curious and Googled Jodie and learned that she is not a psychologist. She had her license revoked and she was removed from the LDS suggested list. So Shary did not know that, right? You have to understand, that's like, this is her being like, this is weird. I'm going to look this up. Apparently, that's what Kelsey does. Google her. She damage control. I wrote this. She damage controlled the narrative that she was under attack from others. So apparently, Jodie went to the Frankies, and I'll call them just obviously Ruby and Kevin, and already told them this stuff. So this wasn't new information. She damage controlled and said, these are people who are after me. This was a disgruntled client. This is what happened. So she already told them this stuff. So this wasn't a shock. And, Shary went to her mom saying, hey, this is weird. this is really weird. She doesn't even have a license. She says she's a psychiatrist. She says she's all these things. She doesn't even have a license. She got it revoked. There's a bunch of complaints about her breaking up these marriages, all this stuff. She's like, well, Shary told me that. Those are people who hate her. These are Satan's minions. These are Satan's people. They hate Jodie because Jodie's doing God's work and Satan is attacking, right? So that's where it's all coming from. All of this is coming from this place of protecting. Now Jodie's being protected and also saying it's all their fault. This is where this gets weird, man. And I literally wrote a cuss word in here, but I won't say it. Jodie would go into these possessed trances. I said effing psycho because it looks so fake. She was saying to herself, so I'm going to give you a visual because it is kind of disturbing. And I know some people, like, we always want to tell you that it's very disturbing to watch because even though it's fake, it's weird. She sits in a room and she's head down and she's just super like this. And she's like, she's mine to herself. Like she's possessed by these demons. Well, let me go ahead and pause right here. If your spiritual leader is demon possessed and rocking in the closet talking about she's mine, hello, what the F? You wouldn't be like, hey, she's not the one. She's not the one. She shouldn't be leading me because she's obviously messed up. The freaking homies got her and they're saying that she's theirs. She's like, she's mine. She's mine. And then she'd moan and she's hitting her chest. I mean, this is a full-on performance. She's on the ground. She's hitting her chest like this. She's faking it. And it felt like exactly, Grace. It's a performative fake. You have to sell more. So I don't know what caused her to sell more, but she's selling possession. Now I'm just letting you know straight up, she's literally doing this just to sell this idea that she's demon possessed, but she's the spiritual leader. The prophet. Your prophet has demons? I'm out. Because you can't help me. You're gone. I'll never understand that. That did not just freaking get you. That didn't immediately just say, holy hell, you're freaking possessed. You just did an owl head. I'm out. You got to go. I'd kick her ass out quicker than a hurry. You got to go. You got some. You go back to the handprint house. I almost cussed again. I'm trying not to. Woomby, zwoomadoomady. Bullshit right here. It was so ridiculous because it was selling a narrative and she's just so absolutely faking it. You can tell. And so what happens is this is what leads it. So she does all this stuff. Ruby believes that the whole reason that they're in this position, because she's so godly, she's being attacked. Now Ruby has to be the one to save her. So now Ruby's job is to save Jodie. Do you see how that brings in this idea of wounded animal and I have to fix it? That whole narrative, that whole idea is a big deal because that's exactly what it is. It's a manipulation tactic to get people to care. She wanted someone to care about her more and sell the narrative more. And so she starts getting to that place. And so I don't know. Her mission was to cast it out. So the spirits start attacking Jodie. She's obviously possessed at this point, and she's rocking and she's mine. She's mine. I'm like, what the f is wrong with you? You're the one in charge. Like, I'll never get it. Like, now she's trying to, I'll just like, you're supposed to be the one teaching everyone else. You're the one. Yeah, you might be attacked, but like now you're possessed. So Kevin, this is crazy, man. This is where this manipulation runs deep. Kevin goes in and he's going to obviously give her a blessing. He's going to do everything he can to cast the demons out. So this is their yes blessings, and he's telling it to get out. And he said it's responding to every name of Jesus. So now the hands are there. He's saying Jesus's name in different ways. And he's trying to cast it out. And apparently she's oh, this isn't funny. It's not funny. This is really effed up. This is not funny. I'm not laughing. I'm just laughing at the acting. I promise you I'm not laughing at the situation. I'm just laughing at how over the top you have to be to pretend that this is happening to you. Did it really? So he's blessing her. He's doing everything he can. Apparently it's not working. So apparently they kick him out because it's not working the way it's supposed to. But she's like thrashing and going crazy at the name of Jesus. Right. Thank you. Thank you. She's running a therapy God mentoring program that saves people and marriages and prepares you for the end of the world. And she's being looked at as a prophetess and she's demon possessed. It's just, and then she's on the ground selling it harder. And now he's calling out Jesus names. And every time he says a Jesus name, she has a big reaction, right? Like she's obviously faking this. So what the hell's going on? He's up there saying, get out in Yeshua's name. She's like, she's faking it. It's not real life. So now when it doesn't work for her, they kick Kevin out because apparently it's his problem. He's not authoritative enough and they keep going. Imagine the time spent in this place. You have to think about this in a realistic way. This woman is causing them to sit there and bring in that time that Ruby's sitting there trying to get the demons out of her. This is real life. This is real life. This is happening in someone's home. And she's making them sit there for hours, sitting with her in this possessed state. This is a huge level of manipulation. Okay. Huge level. And an unbelievable amount of work for Jodie to fake. Not sure why she was I don't know what this whole thing was. Jodie would growl and go crazy at the exorcisms, especially with the names of Jesus. Ruby would now go and check on Jodie at night because Jodie claimed it was the worst in the nighttime. So now Ruby's getting out of her bed to go and check on Jodie. She's going out of her way to go and check and make sure Jodie's okay because apparently this happens the most at night. Okay. Ruby would go check on Jodie. Ruby stayed with Jodie at night to see if the demons would go away. So at some point, she literally said, if I stay with her at night, maybe the demons won't attack her. Maybe the demons won't come in and do what they do. I'll stay here as, I guess, a protection or be with her. Then they slept in the bed together. And they started sleeping in bed together. And they started having, sleepovers every night. So now she's sleeping exclusively in the room with Jodie in her oldest daughter's room. Would you want to sleep with a demon-possessed person? And who's just convulsing and going nuts? Oh, well, now that you're here, honey, it's not coming. The demons don't like you. So let's just sleep in the bed together. And as long as your head's next to mine, we're good. Crazy, right? Because what's the thought process? The isolation we talked about from before. Jodie is isolating everybody. She gets you in and then starts to pull people where she wants them and puts them in the category and puts them in the place that they want. So now Ruby is so scared for Jodie, even if this was a place where Ruby was genuine, we don't know, but she wanted to come and she was sleeping in the bed. Okay. And I wrote down a lot of notes around this. I know at some point that Shary did share. We'll talk about it in a minute because it comes up a little bit later into the documentary. Now, Kevin is getting treated badly and he's being treated badly in the groups. Now, Jodie used to idolize Kevin in these groups, the small groups that Kevin is joining. They're having these conversations and Kevin is the star pupil, right? Jodie's literally telling people to go and be like Kevin. And now Kevin's a problem. So Kevin's being outed publicly on the platform as you need to do better. You need to step up and be a better man. She's in his house in the other room talking madness and talking about him from his daughter's bedroom, telling him to be a better man. And now he's literally getting outed in his own house by Jodie because she has such a hold on him. She's in the other room They're going to see each other after the meeting. But in the meeting with all the other men, Kevin is now being outed by Jodie to be better and step up and this and that and be a better person. She's literally publicly shaming him, knowing what it is because she lives there. And he's literally going to see her in 20 minutes after the meeting. It's wild, dude. This idea is nuts. This whole thing is so insane. How once she got actually in the house, what the stirring of the pot was going on, right? It's happening. And she's doing it masterfully. And she's really, really doing this. Okay. Then they have a really fun Christmas, which they said was a good Christmas for them. They specifically didn't give the two younger siblings a single gift. They lost their privileges of Christmas gifts. Ruby started to say that their patterns were selfish. She said she kept them home to scrub the floorboards that they would feel the pain. I wrote the word exactly as she said it, that they would feel the pain. The two younger kids needed to feel the pain from their selfishness. So all of the anger that Ruby has harbored, or whatever Ruby's reason to attack the children, has specifically been refocused on the two younger kids. And now she's punishing them. And now they need to feel the pain. Now, again, you have to understand Jodie also earlier on was doing the same thing with Chad. And so if in that house, if you did not act the way that Ruby wanted you to, if you were not a normal, if you were a normal kid, you were not okay. And so if you would not act a certain way and please her, you were a problem. Now you have to go back to the point of this is all happening while Jodie's there. Where are these indoctrinations coming from? Now the two younger children are problems. So a little girl brought a gift to the house. She brought a gift to the house for her friend, which is Ruby's daughter. And Ruby took it and made her daughter throw the gift away from her friend into the trash. Later on that day, I guess the friend came up to her and said, to Ruby's daughter, and said, "Did you like the gift? I specifically went and got that gift." And she looked at her with a dead face and said, "My mom made me throw it away. My mom made me throw the toy that you got for me for Christmas away. I'm not allowed to have a Christmas this year." So we're talking about completely ruining holidays, this type of thing where we talked about complete domination in a completely different way of telling them that they're not good enough for certain things, taking away the simplicity of something, dangling something that you can manipulate the children with. So now the two youngest get no Christmas gifts. Not allowed to have it. But watch everybody else open Christmas. Imagine if you had that happen. You'd never forget it. If you got in trouble and they got Christmas taken away and now everybody else is there and you're watching them open the gifts and you're not allowed to have a gift as a child. And then throw away the gifts afterwards. So after that, Shary said she felt an off vibe at the home. She came home and she felt it. So this must be, if you leave for college, you come home a few months later for Christmas, get like Christmas break. She went into her room one time to grab something and there were candles and massage oils on the desk. This was the reinforcement of the idea that Shary believes that Ruby and Jodie were engaged in a relationship or something more. Kevin also reinforces this idea, saying that they were overly more than friends. This is reinforced by the documentary that they are more than friends. They are more than sisters. They were deep. This stuff was deep, and it's something that, you know, this is where this whole idea comes from. Now, again, I've told you guys, and I caught one thing happen with Lori that I wish I never did. And I already told you guys about it, so I don't want to get all into it, but I know exactly what that feeling feels like when you know something is so off and you immediately question your mom's, what she's doing in life. And that was the time that I had the same exact moment, only I didn't see like suggestive things like that. I saw her and Melanie get in bed together with their garments on, and that's a whole nother level of what the f are you doing? I don't care if this is the most innocent thing in the world. Your garments in the LDS church, that's your undergarments. That's your underwear. And you're in the bed with just your underwear on. That's not normal. You don't just get in the bed with your friends with your underwear on and snuggle. I'm just saying. I'm not a girl, so whatever. I'm not gonna get down that rabbit hole, but not a normal thing to do with your close friends, in my opinion. And I don't know about the whole massage oils and all that candle stuff. I don't know. But it would, in a sense, what I would say is it would make more sense that there was an engagement of those type of relationships to get you closer. And only because the intimacy of the belief systems, the similar thought patterns, who knows? Who knows what comes with that? Okay. So that happens. Kevin says that they were uncomfortably intimate. That was his point. He said uncomfortably intimate. So Kevin, so this is what another thing, this how this, so the whole idea is this leads to this idea that everybody's got to go. So Kevin needed to go so Ruby could be Jodie's. Now Jodie is in full isolation mode. Jodie has now isolated Ruby on her own and now needs everybody to get up out of here. This turns into what happens next. But Jodie did this slowly and methodically. And I told you, it's very slow, and you'll see exactly why. Chad got kicked out of the house. And this genuinely breaks my heart, dude. Like, this is so exactly what we talked about earlier when it comes to this manipulation of a person who's willing to admit they're wrong or anything that they think is wrong and be ostracized for it and be completely treated like it is the worst thing. I mean, this pissed me the F off. All of this does, but this I understood and really upset me. Chad got kicked out for confessing whether he had watched porn or had made out with a girl. Okay. So Chad goes in this. Oh my gosh, dude, I feel this in my freaking chest. Just all of this is just hard. Chad goes in and tells Jodie in an honest place, wanting to confess it because he feels bad, because probably a lot of it is the culture of perfectionism and the culture of, I want to be a better guy. I need to be a better person. And this makes me a bad person. This thing I'm doing makes me a bad person. Instead of this is maybe the wrong choices, it's now identity. It's you are a bad person. You are the worst kind of person. It is now action to identity. And so he goes to Jodie and he admits to, I guess, whenever he had slipped up with porn or if he'd been making out with a girl became something that he felt he was wrong. And so he had to confess this. So he tells Jodie, and apparently Jodie's advice to Chad is to go and tell Ruby. Go tell Ruby what you've done. Go and tell her. Tell your mom. So he does it. He confesses to his mom. His description is that she lost it. She bawled her eyes out to the point where she couldn't breathe, as if she was so disappointed, and then completely went numb and completely changed after she had lost it. Goes completely from red face to stone. And she tells him that all of Jodie's attacks in the house were Chad's fault, that he had to leave. And I wrote this specifically. I said he had to leave for his sins, because that's exactly what she was basically telling him. The fake demon possession, exactly. The fake demon possession, her shaking around, her acting a fucking fool. Sorry. Her acting like a fool got blamed on Chad as a teenager for doing things as if he was spiritually corrupting the house and made him responsible for her problems. Kicked out of the house because of this at 17 years old, kicked out of his home because he was doing wrong. He was the reason why Jodie's suffering. This is his fault because he's not keeping the spiritual line now. This is the, I will never, ever be able to like, this is the number one thing. Like this would hurt anybody because you're honest, you're coming, you don't want to do it, whatever the case is. And then next thing you know, you are blamed for her problems. You are now the problem. You are the problem. She just needed a finger to point at somebody. It's sickening. And it's not his fault. Him watching porn and making out with girls did not cause Jodie to have demons. That doesn't even make any sense. Number one. Number two, it doesn't matter because he obviously wouldn't know that at that time. He's a young man. And it's just crazy. Like, there's no grace there. That is pure blame shifting to him as if it's his fault. How in the hell is that his problem? How the hell would that ever fault him? But she needed somebody to get after. So now Chad's gone. Shary's in college. Chad is now kicked out for his sinfulness, even though he did nothing wrong. And I just want to make that clear. He didn't do anything wrong. He told them, and he was willing to even confess. Okay? Now Kevin gets kicked out. Ruby said, so he comes home. He comes home and says, she says to him, our marriage is in serious jeopardy because of you and because of your lusts. So now he gets the same exact mental treatment. She comes to him and says, the things you think about, the things that you're doing have jeopardized us. She said, I'm trying to get on another level. I am trying to get to another freaking level spiritually, and you cannot hold me back. You are a problem. She tells him, you're holding me and Jodie back. She tells him, I want you to leave, and I want you to go no contact with me and the children. That's a lot. So now the isolation has come through Ruby. Ruby has isolated. Obviously, Shary was gone in college, but she has now used Ruby and gotten into Ruby's head to a point where Ruby is now upfrontly moving people out. Get out. Get out. I don't need your husband. You're a problem. You need to get out of here. When they're the ones participating in that level of what they're doing. It's insanity. It doesn't make any sense. And it is putting all the blame on them. It puts every ounce of blame on Chad, and it puts every ounce of blame on the husband, and everyone else is a problem. That is the common theme here. The commonality is we're perfect. The two people who are in it, the three people, however many, they believe they're perfect, that they're flawless, and that everyone else is a problem. Charles told me one thing I'll never forget, and I always tell you guys this, and I'm just going to say it as it was. He said, if you are walking around and everyone around you is an a-hole, it actually turns out you're the a-hole. And it's the truest thing ever, because come on, man. Like, everybody else isn't a problem. Maybe you should look inwards, because now you're just specifically manipulating and telling people, like, this has got to hurt, man. This would hurt Chad. This would hurt Kevin. It doesn't matter. It just, now it's blame shifting from that stuff to, are you kidding me? Like, now it's their fault. It's their fault that things aren't going where they want. They're not progressing fast enough spiritually because of their men of their lives. That's what's interesting too, is that the men in their lives were the problems, but they had to get everybody who was older out. Okay. So he leaves. He goes and tells the kids one by one and says that I'm going to leave. And apparently his younger daughter was looking at him almost in a way of like, don't leave. Like, something about her face to him, he says, was portraying, please don't leave. Don't leave the home. And I think that was obviously from a place of fear. Apparently, while he was saying goodbye, Ruby was taking pictures and smiling as if it was good content. And there's shows the picture of him holding his children, saying goodbye after Ruby told him to go no contact. And there's photos being taken of him saying goodbye to his children in these emotional moments as a father, saying goodbye to his children because he's been told by his wife to not contact any of them. So he does so, and he also contacts Chad and Shary and calls and says that he can't talk to them and don't talk to him, or he's not going to talk to them and they shouldn't talk to him. Um, After this, Shary now gets a call and says she was removed from the car insurance and was bad for talking to her own dad. So now she's a problem. So Shary now becomes a problem. She's not going to have car insurance. I think they said at the end of the year her insurance is going to go out. She was being removed from the family because she was talking to the dad. Now again, this is exactly what Lori was doing. She was trying to make it seem as if Charles was the worst person of all time and that it was a problem and that you had to pick a side because he was going off and that Charles was this bad person. And you need to understand, in the moment, you don't know what's going on because you don't have the context. And that's the problem. And I think that there needs to be an understanding here. It's in the moment. It's different than the hindsight, the later on time. And that is the problem. That is the problem. So that's what we're trying to bring to attention here, is that you need to understand these things happened in that moment that people don't notice. You just notice certain shifts. And that's what happens there. Okay. So Shary goes home to confront Ruby. She brings her friend with her. And Shary goes, "You're causing damage to our," okay, no, here it is. Sorry. This is Ruby. I wrote Shary on accident. So they get to the house. Shary and the friend come up, and Ruby comes to the front door, opens the door and shuts it behind her, doesn't let her in the house, and says, "You are causing damage to our family and you're deceived. And I feel sorry for you." Tells her daughter, "You're causing damage to us and you are now deceived. You're not a problem. You're a problem and you're not allowed to be part of this family. You are an issue. You're an issue," to her oldest daughter. So obviously she's broken over this. Who wouldn't be? They said that Ruby was stone cold. No emotion here. Like, get out, cut off. And I wrote, Shary was removed from the family for no reason. Shary shows a picture to the friend and says, "This is my mom," and shows the friend the picture and then tells her, "That is not my mom." And that hit me hard. Like, I got goosebumps saying it right now. That hit me in a different way that I cannot explain, because she recognized immediately the immediate change and knew that's not the person that I know. And again, I will not speak for Shary, but I'll speak for myself. The image that you build of your parent while you're growing up changes over time, especially when you grow up and realize what it was. So I had to learn that. And it was really hard because everyone does this with everybody. We have a character of that person built in our mind. When we think of them, when we look at them in our minds, when we think about who they are, we have built their character based off of what we observed and who they are to us. And a lot of times, especially as a child, to the parent, and then as you get older you realize maybe that wasn't the case, that character can be understood for what it was based off of your experiences rather than just your feelings. And a lot of times it's hard because most people aren't going to grow up thinking, well, my mom wasn't really the mom I thought she was, unless something happens, or my dad wasn't this person I thought he was, until something like makes you question it, right? It's not really common to try to change the character up them in your brain. And so I just realized what I dealt with. I don't know if Shary has gotten there, but obviously it sounds like she has, because she speaks about this so candidly. But it's hard to that moment is a very, very hard realization that person that is speaking to you, that is talking to you, that you are looking at, is not the person that you knew or loved, and then it's gone. And that is like a death right there. When you have that realization, that is like a death, and you lose that. You lose that. I don't know. You grieve it. You feel that. And I felt that with all of my heart. And that really, really was hard. The last note I have on my 12th page of notes for you guys was, then there were only the 4 youngest kids left in that house. So that was my breakdown, because I wrote almost the entire episode. I feel like everything was hitting me And I only write things down that I notice that matter, that I know I'm going to want to bring up. And I really feel that that is why we talk on this channel, is from the inside perspectives of what's going on. There are so many things that I hope and wish and continue will say this at the end of every episode here, is I just wish nothing but the best for all of this family and all the extended family and everybody who's been affected by this, and knowing that their value and anything that they did was not assigned by Jodie, Ruby, or anybody like that. That you are your own person and you are loved, and you do not need somebody to tell you that you're loved or tell you that you're not loved. That's a hard place to get to, is to learn your value outside of it. I appreciate you guys, man, being here. Nothing matters more to me than bringing a place of, let's get this here so we can learn and grow and change all of this. And this is a great question, Christy. I think so. Obviously, a lot of those beliefs have to be there in a core way. And what I mean when I tell you guys culture and religion and that kind of thing, is what happens is culture and religion can create this culmination of ideals rather than following God. It should be the number one goal, is to follow God, but it creates everything else. It creates the perfection. It creates the, I'm not praying here, I'm not doing this, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to be better here. There's nothing wrong with self-improvement. It's a problem when you're doing it to do it. You just do it because you think it's supposed to be done. You do it because it's routine for you. That's the point. Anything you do with love, if it's not done with love, it's just there. You're just doing it. It's just an action. And I think that that's a whole point of the Pharisees and Jesus. What Jesus talks about is just doing something isn't, your heart's not in it. You're not even there for the right reasons. You're there to be seen. You're there to be heard. I think what happened was, and this is why I can't wait to watch the episode 3 to understand if they bring any more context in here, to understand if there's a connecting point where they really flipped. That's always people's question, is where did they flip? It's not a flip moment. That's what people don't understand. It's not a moment where they flip. It's build, 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 build. Then they do something more drastic, but it's a slow, if you want to call it an incline or a decline. Let's call it a decline. The entire time they're already on the trajectory. And I think Shary hits on this perfectly. Shary says Jodie really just woke something up or turned something on in her. And that's exactly what Chad did too. Like, this isn't something that they were so out of character where what they did was just like, out of the blue, like they've never done anything similar or thought like this. No, it's a slow, same path though. The decline is just going further down. And so you have to see that is exactly what's happening here, is that there's not just a flip. They've always had these tendencies, these characteristics, or certain things that existed way before they got to that point. And that's what brings them down the path. And this is why we talk about it, because what gets this whole idea going, if you want to pull it back and let's just focus on religion or focus on personality traits, a whole point is, this is two women, specifically to Ruby and Lori, who do not have their identities. They were not built up in an identity. They were not told that they're loved and cared for. They probably never received that. And so their whole life is about doing that thing, fame, right? Lori chasing to be on TV, she was on TV. She did Wheel of Fortune. She did that kind of thing. She felt called to bigger things. Ruby makes her channel called to bigger things. Then it changes from selfishness to selflessness, where now it's about God. And now God wants me to do this big thing. And now you're bigger than everyone else and you're here. Now there's got to be an ego there. And that ego is a fragile ego, because they are such broken people who do not love themselves. And if they do not love themselves, they immediately start to look for meaning. They feel meaningless. They feel empty. Empty people need to be fulfilled. And so they do what they do. People turn to addictions to be filled. People turn to video games to be filled. It doesn't matter. People want to fill voids. The whole world is trying to feel love. Every human being was born to feel love, and your job as a parent is to fulfill your children with an identity that builds them up so they know who they are. So if someone says this crazy stuff, they have an identity to fall back on. People can't just get in their ear because they're like, well, actually, I know who I am. I've learned who I am. I've grown into who I am. But that's the problem, is that this is an identity, it's a very identity crisis across the world, is that people are just searching so deeply for meaning and purpose. That is not, again, this is a natural point of life. Everybody needs to feel like they're needed, wanted, and loved. That is natural. That's the problem, though. The fact that it's natural is that other people see it as an opportunity to get money out of you. So they see an opportunity to pull you into something that they know won't help you. They don't have good intentions. It's a really big problem, because this is exactly what's causing, and that's all I can say. I haven't even ever dove into Ruby's background, but I have with Lori, and I know her, and I'm telling you, this is a huge point, that they both needed to be seen and heard and validated. And then they wanted to be special because they felt empty, and everybody else is the problem, and everybody else is the demon, and everybody else is they project every insecurity and painful thing that they've gone through onto others. And then they justify it because they use religion and they use all this stuff to cover up how they really feel. They feel horrible. They feel the rot. I promise you, they feel it in their souls, and they do everything they can to give you a facade of perfection and strive to be loved for the idea of the character that they've built for you. They've built a character for you to consume of them, right? They're not giving you that. And so that's always going to be the problem here. It'll always be the problem, is it goes back all the way to childhood. It goes all the way back with religion. You have to find your identity, and you have to find God for God. You can't just let people lead you all over the place, because then you'll be a mess. What's the blind leading the blind? Really? You're really going to let Jodie sit there as a demon-possessed person and then tell you everything about not being demon-possessed and be a bunch of spiritual stuff? That doesn't even make any sense. It's just crazy. That's a good question. I think you have to face the fact of why you're insecure. What it makes you insecure. If you can identify, this is what therapy really is. It's identification. You are very emotionally intelligent. And a lot of times you know exactly how you feel and what you think, but you don't know how to verbalize it, and you don't know how to speak it, and you don't know how to get it out. And so the insecurity, that you know why you're insecure, you probably know all the reasons, because you probably say it to yourself a lot, and you're probably negative. So let's say I don't like my cheeks, and I'm constantly saying how much I don't like my cheeks. I already know it's an insecurity. Identifying the fact that I don't like my cheeks. Well, why don't I like my cheeks? Oh, maybe because I was comparing my cheeks to Aquaman, and I wanted his cheeks. And so now I want my cheeks to look like him, because I did a comparison and I thought it was this way. And so you lead yourself down the understanding of why you feel the way that you feel. You identify the emotion. When you identify your emotions, they're easier to conquer. But when you don't know what's going on with you, you're just upset and you can't identify it. You have no idea what's going on with you. How could you possibly be happy? Because you never know. You're just a whirlwind of emotions and feelings, and it's hard. And now you're angry because that covers up your sadness. You're this because that covers up this. You're all over the place. So it really is. I mean, there's a book for emotions for our kids that I've literally read through with them, and I'm like, this is great. There's an emotional wheel, and this was sent to us, by the way. I did not discover this, but we had this sent to us, and it's about tracing out your emotions. I feel really mad right now. And then there's another section. Well, why do I feel mad? Oh, because I didn't get heard. That actually really upset me, because I was really trying to say something and I wasn't listened to. And then that made me feel sad, because I really wanted to share that information. And well, why did that make me feel sad? Well, because, and you follow the wheel until you get to the point where you understand your feelings, and now you can accept it. But that takes a lot of work, and that's hard. And, you gotta understand that you have to start going back to the place of you are valuable as a human being, and you have to find that identity. That's another thing I really hit on in this episode too, when she was under fire, to say I'm a child of God. So she identified herself as a child of God. That was her core identity that she believes. So she tried to go back to that place, because that's the only place she felt any kind of secure. And that's why everything went back to the religious stuff, because now she said, well, what's my core? Well, she was taught growing up that that's all she is a child of God. And then she went back to that place. So it's finding who you are as a person. And that takes time. I'm not saying I know that, but I'm telling you that it's just something you have to understand about yourself. And you have to understand that your feelings are important to recognize, name them, identify them, and it will help you with a lot of the insecurities. And then stop comparing yourself to other people. Why is it a comparison? You don't need to compare yourself to other people. And I know how much we do that. It's such a big deal. People do it every day without a thought. Right? And again, I talk about it with gym culture. I see it all the time. People compare themselves to each other. You're not the same person. Why is it even a thought of a competition? I just don't understand it. Like there's different people doing different things. It's not a comparison. Anyway, I love you guys. I really appreciate you. Kelsey just dropped the feelings book. I recommend it. I'm serious. It's a beautiful thing to simplify it. A lot of times when you work with your kids, it simplifies. And when you simplify, it's just easier for you to understand. Just break it down for like you are for a kid, and you will be like, wow, this is profound. I love you guys so much. We have another live tonight. We'll be doing a little detective work for fun, something that Kelsey and I have done a few times. And I think it'll just be really fun and interesting. It just kind of goes into a whole nother realm of us working on these things together, especially when we get into these new places. There's some of these cases where we're going to discuss what's going on in the moment and breaking down the psychology of what we think is going on. So that will be fun. But tonight we're going to do that. It's our Fun Friday. So I just needed to get this episode to you guys. I felt it's just this whole thing is like has me thinking about it. And so watching it and getting it out helps me. And I really, really hope it helps you guys. I really hope it helps you guys in processing in any way, shape, or form. Love you guys. Appreciate you. And just let's pray for healing and love for the Frankie family and what they've been through. And just know that they are in our hearts, and give them any support that we possibly can. Appreciate you guys. Love you. And if you guys are going to be there tonight, I'll see you tonight.